This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW, flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is flyer number 13, entitled Arcing, that's after retirement careering, the true focus of a MGTOW's Masculist's life. Description. This flyer describes arcing after retirement careering, which is the main focus of a MGTOW's Masculist life, free from wage slavery to an employer and from man slavery to a fluffie. Flyer itself. Arcing after retirement careering, the true focus of a MGTOW's Masculist's life. A revolution is underway in the average man's life called arcing after retirement careering. The traditional role of the male was to be a wage slave to some employer to earn his living, and to be a man slave to a fluffy wife to pay for her to raise her kids in his house that he pays for. This traditional lifestyle is now crashing down as the circumstances in men's lives have changed radically over the past few decades. The biggest change occurred in the 60s with the invention of the contraceptive pill, which allowed women to have reliable control of the number of kids they wanted. They wanted, on the whole, 0, 1 or 2, which meant that women then faced some 40-50 years of career time. So parents began to socialize their daughters to be as much career women as their sons were raised to be career men. Women, with their contraceptive pill, their household gadgets and higher education opportunities, poured into the workforce. Some of them, that is, those who studied career competent majors such as the professions or the techs and made good money, became FIPs, financially independent persons, who did not need to parasite off a traditional man's money. They were able to make their own good money and could afford to buy their own middle-class house to raise their kids in. The increase in the number of FIP women freed men from the existential burden of being the sole breadwinner of the family, so that he could afford to work less, have a less stressed lifestyle, and live a bit longer. Then came feminism and the fluffy feminist takeover of the divorce courts in the Western countries. A fluffy is a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off a man's money. A fluffy feminist is a woman who has had her feminist consciousness raised, but not her masculist, that is men's lib, consciousness raised, so by default still has traditional fluffy attitudes towards men, that is, seeing them as exploitable checkbooks, that is, as man-slaves. The fluffy feminists persuaded the gender politicians to give them favourable status in the divorce courts, which resulted in tens of millions of US divorcing fathers being financially massacred, losing custody of their kids with 90% probability, losing their house that is taken by the ex-wife to raise her kids in, forced to pay child support to kids he will see maybe twice a month, and alimony to his fluffy ex-wife with no legal obligation on her to become a FIP, so she continues to parasite upon him after the divorce as she did before the divorce. The toxicity of divorce to men has made them see traditional marriage as toxic. So now 70% of young men under 35 in the US refuse to marry and have kids. This will cause the US population to be wiped out within a century. Therefore, it's only a question of time before the gender politicians are forced to pass men-fair gender laws. For example, reforming divorce laws, passing a paternity rejection right, etc. But that will probably take a decade or more. The toxicity of marriage was the main reason for the rise of the MGTOW, men going their own way, refusing to marry, refusing to have kids, spending their money on themselves, doing what they love, movement, and similarly with the Masculists, who are more politically active than the MGTOWs, who merely passively walk away from the marriage market, and for some, have nothing to do with women at all, not even sexing them. Combining the toxicity of traditional marriage with the fluffy and the rise of FIP, career competent women, has allowed a new lifestyle for Masculists/MGTOWs called tweffing, that is 2A2F-ing, that is 2 apartments, 2 FIPs, That is, a relationship between a fit man and a fit woman, each with their own apartment, which gives them regular sex and companionship. When the relationship goes sour, they both simply return to their own apartments, cost-free, because no divorce, because no marriage, no kids, so no child support payment, and no alimony, because both are FIPs. If the woman starts to nag or loses interest in sex, the man can warn her, and if that doesn't work, he can quietly walk out the door, cost-free. This ability to just walk out puts real pressure on the woman to be polite and civil to the man, and not nag him, nor try to mould him the way she wants. Tway-tweffing keeps partners behaving civilly. Tway-tweffing opens up huge possibilities for a man. He is not under pressure to buy a McMansion by a fluffy wife. He can live rather modestly, saving and investing heavily, so that he can retire very early in life, if, for example, halfway through, that is, in his 40s, and then become an archer after a retirement career, doing what he loves to do, and no longer being a wage slave to some employer, that is, being forced to do what the employer wants and pays him to do, and no longer being a manslave to some fluffy parasitic wife. He's now free to pursue his own dreams and have a new career based on what he wants to do. This is utterly liberating for men. An arcing male can continue to tway-tweff if he wants, but many men in the final 2 decades of their lives lose their libido, and so no longer need women sexually. So many arcing older males simply become arcing hermits, devoting themselves entirely to their own arcing passions and being greatly fulfilled by such a lifestyle. Hence, arcing can be seen as the main focus of a man's life. Life can be divided into 3 main phases, labelled prepping, that is, childhood and preparing to wage by getting an education; waging, that is, earning a wage, a salary, a living, to be able to save and invest by living modestly; and arcing, after retirement careering, living off savings from the waging phase. By prepping well, that is, by studying career-competent majors at university, a man can earn good money as a wager, which he can then save and invest strongly, because he lives modestly. He can then realistically retire halfway through his 80 years and then begin the true focus of his life, that is, arcing, that is, doing what he loves, and being free to spend his time as he chooses. Hence, arcing is the focus of his life. He preps to wage and he wages to arc. So prepping and waging are, in a manner of speaking, both prepping for his main focus in life, namely to arc. Life then for a man is all about arcing. It is life's focus for the modern man. Once the gender politicians finally create men-fair gender laws, then more men will be prepared to tway-tweff, that is, to waywef. That is 1A to F, that is, 1 apartment, 2 FIPs, and have kids. But that may take decades. And MGTOWs and Masculists are alive now and are impatient to increase the quality of their lives, freeing themselves from wage slavery and man slavery. They want to arc. They want to refocus their lives now. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name, de GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW, Flyers. Ciao.